Frankly, I had a little bit of sympathy with Mohamed Bazoum, the president of Niger, who was deposed in a military coup a few days ago, until I read his article in the Washington Post. It really is quite an embarrassment. It is basically calling for his country to be colonized by the Americans and other Western powers. Now, I do not believe in any kind of interventions, military, political, and not even a humanitarian intervention, because the term itself was invented by Western powers to intervene in the affairs of other countries, and they carry out coups and that sort of thing in the name of, well, we are trying to make things better for the people of that country. Well, we have seen what happened in Libya, we have seen what happened in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and many other parts of the world. Does Mohamed Bazoum not understand this? Is he trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of the understanding of how American interventions in any part of the world works? When was the last time that the West has intervened in the affairs of any country and that country emerged stronger, better, and more democratic? Honestly, I can think of a single example, but maybe Mohamed Bazoum, who for whatever reason is able to communicate as a hostage from his palace in Niger, can actually tell us how. The weird thing about his article in the Washington Post is that he makes no mention of the uranium that his country has been sending to Europe and to France in particular. Now, this is particularly alarming. Why? Because Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world. In fact, one of the top 10 poorest countries in the world. They have one of the lowest incomes anywhere on planet Earth. And the achievements that he speaks about in the Washington Post are actually not in any way true. There are few numbers here and there that might be related to some degree of stability in the country, and they might not be related to that. But let's just, for the sake of argument, believe that the plight of the people of Niger has been improving slightly in recent months or since he became a president. But how do you explain to us, Mr. Bazoum, that 25% of all of Europe's nuclear energy needs come from the uranium ore of your country, and that the majority of that of France comes from your country, yet somehow your country remains one of the top 10 or on the list of the top 10 poorest countries in the world? How do you explain that? You have all these precious metals, all of this uranium ore, all of these incredible sources that are keeping and fueling the energy supplies of Europe, yet somehow the people of your country, aside from you and your family, of course, are living in extreme poverty. To be more specific, 41% of all people of Niger live under the extreme poverty line, that is under $1.9 per day. That is extremely alarming. Where is the distribution of wealth? Now listen, I'm not saying it's okay to go and carry military coups, and I'm not saying that it's okay for Russia to carry out interventions while others should not be able to do so. That's not the point. But the way he exaggerates the Russian colonialism that has taken over Africa, it is just an exaggeration. And it makes me wonder if Mohamed Bazoum himself wrote that article in the Washington Post. I mean, essentially the article is a call for intervention by the Americans. But it also makes you wonder, why is it not a call for French intervention? That's because the French are pulling out. We have seen that happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and other parts of Africa. They just don't have the power anymore. They don't have the influence anymore. They are hated in that part of the world, and it's not a total surprise why they were hated, because they are colonizers, neo-colonizers. They come with lofty promises about fighting terrorism. They end up fueling terrorism and that sort of thing. So maybe these countries are looking for new partners, Russia, China, and others, because they are sick and tired of the empty promises of the West that has actually fueled more conflicts in these countries. again, doesn't justify or in any way the intervention of Russia or any other country, but at least it explains it. Maybe what you should be calling for, Mr. Bazoum, the first democratically elected president in the history of this and that, maybe what you should have done is not write an article in the Washington Post calling for the Americans to come with their airplanes and Apache helicopters. Maybe you should have called for a national dialogue in your own country to understand the grievances, the sectarian conflicts, and maybe even better, for a regional dialogue that involves everybody, not just the ECOWAS countries, but also Mali, Burkina Faso, and other countries that have to coexist in that part of the world. And they need to coexist beyond the interest of France, the United States, and even Russia. They need to coexist for the sake of Africans, and that in the Sahel region, in fact, Pan-African unity as well. So it was such a shameful article to write in the Washington Post, and it really shows that you are self-seeking, or at best, you have no idea how history operates. And if you don't, please go back to some of the writings of what has been taking place in Syria, in Libya, in Yemen, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the list goes on and on and on. This was Ramzi Baroud with One Take. Thanks for tuning in.